Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. Today we're going to take a look at another horrific case. How well do you know your exes? And do you have any idea what they're truly capable of? Often, even people we've lived with for years under the same roof can remain a mystery to us. The scariest part is when a relationship ends, they may reveal their darkest side, directing all their anger and hatred on each side. Person they once loved. The story of Gladys Ricart is a true example of the realization of the American dream. An immigrant from the Dominican Republic, without money, connections, or language skills in a foreign country, she received an excellent education and independently built a successful career, rising from dishwasher to chief accountant of a large company. In her relationships, Gladys was always cautious and selective, especially after being burned in her youth and left as a single mother. As a mature, accomplished woman, she thought she had finally met a worthy man who seemed to be her perfect match. But Gladys Ricart had no idea that this seemingly intelligent and respected man would become her worst nightmare and take her life on the happiest day of her life. Who was Gladys Ricart? Gladys Maria Ricart was born on December 19, 1960, in a small province in the Dominican Republic. She was the youngest of 3 children, with an older sister named Norma and a brother named Juan. Her parents worked hard to provide a better life for their children. In the mid-1970s, Norma, who was in her early 20s, immigrated to the United States and settled in New York City, where she found a good job. Gladys dreamed of following in her sister's footsteps to seek a better life in America. She was an excellent student, one of the best in her class, but as a teenager, she fell in love with a boy from her school. At 17, she became pregnant, and her boyfriend abandoned her. Determined to raise her child independently, she gave birth to a son, whom she named Davis. With the support of her parents, she continued working hard to save money to join her sister in New York. After nearly 4 years of saving, she realized her dream in the summer of 1982, moving to the United States. She settled in Manhattan with her sister Norma. Gladys was determined not to rely on her relatives for long, so she quickly found work and started studying English, juggling multiple jobs to support herself. She began working as a dishwasher, handing out brochures, and stocking supermarket shelves. As her English improved, she enrolled in college, and within a year, she secured a position as an accountant at a New York company. While working and studying, she continued to save money to bring her son Davis to live with her. By 1985, she had a stable income and was able to rent her own apartment. Finally, she was able to bring Davis from the Dominican Republic to live with her in New York. After earning her degree, Gladys' career took off. She became the chief accountant of a large travel company in Manhattan and was highly regarded by her employers. She spoke fluent English and had even lost her accent. She was able to help her brother Juan, his wife, and their 3 daughters immigrate to the U.S., as well as her elderly parents. The family lived close to each other in Manhattan and remained very close-knit. By the early 1990s, Gladys had achieved nearly everything she had dreamed of. She had a high-paying job, a spacious apartment, and her son was attending a prestigious school. Her family was thriving, and she was secure in her future. However, there was one thing missing in her life: a loving partner. After her first painful experience with relationships, she approached dating with caution. Although her friends and colleagues viewed her as a career-driven woman, Gladys still hoped to find someone to share her life with. Meeting Austine Garcia. One warm autumn morning, while commuting to work on the subway, she met the man who seemed perfect: 41-year-old Austine Garcia. He was polite, charming, and also an immigrant from the Dominican Republic, which gave them much in common. They exchanged phone numbers, and soon a romance blossomed. Austine seemed to have it all: intelligence, kindness, and success. He was a prominent figure in the Dominican community, owned several businesses, and had 2 sons from a previous marriage, for whom he had full custody. Their relationship developed quickly, and within a year, Austine asked Gladys to move in with him. Although their life together seemed promising, problems soon arose. Austine's sons, who were older than Davis, frequently bullied him, and Austine always took his son's side in conflicts. This created tension in the household, leading Gladys to move out with her son, although the couple continued their relationship. As time passed, Austine became increasingly controlling. He insisted on knowing Gladys' every move, constantly checking on her and scrutinizing her social circle. Despite this, he continued to shower her with gifts and affection, and Gladys, hoping for a proposal, stayed in the relationship. However, Austine's possessiveness grew more intense, and he eventually revealed his darker side. When Gladys discovered that Austine was unfaithful, she tried to leave him, but he reacted violently, threatening her with a gun. Terrified for her life, she remained in the relationship out of fear for another year. It wasn't until November 1998, after catching Austine with another woman, that she firmly ended the relationship and moved out for good. The pursuit and the new love. Despite the breakup, Austine continued to pursue her, leaving gifts, flowers, and love notes at her door. In February 1999, Gladys met a new man, James Preston, an accountant and musician. Their relationship quickly grew serious, and by the summer, James proposed. Gladys was overjoyed and began planning a wedding set for September 26, 1999. However, Austine was still obsessed with Gladys, stalking her and even showing up at her home, causing disturbances. A brutal murder on her wedding day. On the day of her wedding, Gladys was surrounded by friends and family, preparing for the happiest day of her life. As she handed out bouquets to her nieces, Austine entered the room. Without warning, he pulled out a .38 caliber pistol and shot her 3 times, once in the shoulder, once in the chest, and finally in the head. Gladys died instantly. The murder was caught on video by the wedding photographers, and Austine was arrested at the scene, although he initially claimed self-defense, saying he didn't know about the wedding and that he had been attacked by Gladys' family. The video footage proved otherwise. It showed Austine calmly entering the room, pulling out his gun, and shooting her in cold blood. Trial and verdict. In 2001, Austine went to trial for the murder of Gladys Ricart. Despite attempts by his defense team to paint him as a victim, the video evidence was damning. He was found guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 30 years. Austine tried to appeal, claiming temporary insanity, but his appeal was denied. Aftermath and impact. The murder of Gladys Ricart sent shockwaves through the Dominican American community and beyond. It wasn't just the brutal nature of the crime that captured public attention, but the fact that it occurred on what was supposed to be the happiest day of her life. The tragedy exposed the dangers of intimate partner violence, even in cases where the perpetrator appeared outwardly successful, generous, and respected within the community. Gladys' family was devastated. Her son, Davis, who had grown up watching his mother work tirelessly to provide a better life for them, was left traumatized. Her family, who had rallied together to help each other thrive in the United States, now faced a devastating loss that no amount of hard work could undo. The once joyful household was shattered by the senseless murder of a beloved sister, mother, and friend. In the years that followed, Gladys Ricart's murder became a symbol of the lethal consequences of controlling and possessive behavior in relationships. It highlighted how individuals, particularly women, are often trapped in dangerous situations due to fear, emotional manipulation, and the hope that their abuser will change. Despite her accomplishments and strength, Gladys found herself caught in the web of abuse, ultimately leading to her tragic demise. The Gladys Ricart Victims of Domestic Violence Memorial Walk. In the wake of her death, Gladys Ricart's family and supporters sought to turn their pain into action. They wanted to raise awareness about domestic violence, particularly in immigrant communities where cultural and language barriers can make it more difficult for victims to seek help. In honor of her memory, the Gladys Ricart Victims of Domestic Violence Memorial Walk, also known as the Bride's March, was established. Every year on September 26th, the day Gladys was murdered, individuals dress in white wedding gowns and march through the streets of New York City to raise awareness of domestic violence and intimate partner homicide. The march symbolizes the lives of women who have been killed by their partners and serves as a reminder of the importance of breaking the cycle of abuse. A legacy of awareness. Over time, the Bride's March has grown in size and influence, becoming a powerful movement that not only commemorates Gladys Ricart but also other victims of domestic violence. The marchers, many of whom are survivors themselves, use the event to call attention to the systemic issues that prevent victims from escaping abusive relationships, such as inadequate legal protections, cultural stigmas, and the lack of accessible support services. Gladys Ricart's story continues to resonate because it represents the all-too-common narrative of women who suffer in silence, enduring abuse in the hopes that their partners will change. Her murder, caught on film and played out in courtrooms, served as a brutal wake-up call that abuse is not just physical, it can be emotional, psychological, and financial, gradually stripping victims of their autonomy and hope. A cautionary tale. The case of Gladys Ricart serves as a stark reminder of the dangers that can arise in intimate relationships, especially when one partner seeks to control and dominate the other. Despite the outward appearance of success, generosity, and community standing, Austine Garcia harbored a deep insecurity and possessiveness that ultimately led to murder. His inability to accept the end of their relationship drove him to commit an unforgivable act of violence, one that robbed not only Gladys of her future but also devastated her family and friends. For many, the lesson of Gladys Ricart's story is clear. Abusive behavior, even if it starts subtly, can escalate into life-threatening violence. Recognizing the early signs of control and manipulation in relationships is crucial, as is providing resources and support for victims who may be afraid or unable to leave. Gladys' legacy lives on through the Bride's March, reminding the world that no one should lose their life at the hands of someone who claims to love them. Her story is a call to action to continue advocating for stronger protections for victims of domestic violence and to ensure that future brides and all women can live free from the fear of violence. The broader conversation on domestic violence. Gladys Ricart's tragic story became not only a personal loss for her family but also a pivotal moment in the broader conversation about domestic violence. Her case brought to light the often hidden and ignored realities of domestic abuse, particularly within immigrant and minority communities. Many women like Gladys find themselves trapped in relationships with controlling and possessive partners, often without knowing how to seek help or, in some cases, not even realizing they are in an abusive situation until it's too late. While the legal system did bring Austine Garcia to justice, with him being sentenced to life in prison, the Ricart case underscored the need for more preventative measures. Laws and protection orders alone aren't always enough to save someone from the dangerous grip of an abusive partner. In Gladys' case, even though she was a strong, independent, and accomplished woman, the emotional manipulation and fear kept her tied to a toxic relationship longer than she wanted to be. It wasn't until the situation escalated to life-threatening violence that it became clear just how dangerous Austine had become. Impact on the legal and support systems. Gladys Ricart's murder led to deeper discussions within both legal and social service systems about how to identify and support victims of domestic abuse earlier in the process. It highlighted the need for early intervention. Many survivors of abuse hesitate to report their situations due to fear of retaliation or because they don't recognize their partner's behavior as abuse. This case demonstrated the importance of educating the public on the warning signs of controlling and manipulative behaviors in relationships. Access to resources for immigrants like Gladys. Language barriers and unfamiliarity with the legal system can make it harder to access the resources they need. Organizations began focusing on providing culturally and linguistically appropriate services to immigrant communities, ensuring that victims have a clear pathway to escape abusive situations. Community involvement. The response to Gladys' death showed how important community involvement is in supporting victims of domestic violence. Her family and friends, though close-knit, were unaware of the depth of the control and fear she experienced until it was too late. This highlighted the need for communities to be more vigilant, supportive, and proactive in helping those who might be suffering in silence. The continuing march for justice and awareness. As the Brides March continues every year, it serves not just as a memorial for Gladys Ricart, but also as a movement that advocates for systemic changes to better protect victims of domestic violence. Marchers dressed in white gowns symbolize brides who never had the chance to walk down the aisle or who were killed by their intimate partners. The march passes through key neighborhoods in New York City and other major cities, often stopping at courthouses, police precincts, and homes where victims of domestic violence were murdered. The visual impact of the march is powerful, seeing a sea of brides walking solemnly, holding signs that bear the names of women killed by their partners. Sparks public conversations about the urgent need to address domestic violence. It's a stark reminder that these are not just statistics, but real people whose lives were brutally cut short. Global impact and growing awareness. While the Brides March initially started in New York, the movement has since spread to other cities and countries. The story of Gladys Ricart is shared across borders as an example of the dangers of domestic abuse, especially the often overlooked emotional and psychological abuse that can turn into physical violence. Similar marches and events are held around the world to raise awareness and push for stronger legal protections and support systems for victims of domestic violence. In countries where domestic violence remains a taboo topic, Gladys' case is often cited in campaigns aimed at breaking the silence. Advocates and survivors continue to push for change in legal frameworks, social services, and cultural attitudes toward domestic violence. Personal stories and survivors speak out. One of the most significant outcomes of the Ricart case is how it empowered survivors to speak out. In the years following the murder, many women and men have come forward to share their stories of surviving domestic abuse, often citing Gladys Ricart as their inspiration to leave their abusive relationships before it was too late. The media coverage, memorial marches, and documentaries about the case have given a voice to survivors, encouraging them to break their silence and seek help. Organizations and shelters that provide support to domestic violence survivors have reported an increase in outreach, with many people seeking information on how to safely leave their abusers. The awareness generated by cases like Gladys Ricart's has made it easier for people to recognize abusive patterns in their relationships and feel less isolated. Hope for the future. Though the loss of Gladys Ricart is heartbreaking, her story has created a lasting legacy that continues to save lives. Through annual events, educational programs, and the work of countless advocates, her name has become a symbol of resilience, justice, and the fight against domestic violence. As more people become educated about the warning signs of abusive relationships and as support systems improve, there is hope that fewer lives will be lost to intimate partner violence. Gladys Ricart's story remains a cautionary tale, but it also serves as a beacon of hope that with continued advocacy and awareness, we can prevent similar tragedies from happening in the future. The story of Gladys Ricart will forever be a reminder that love should never hurt, and that everyone deserves to feel safe and respected in their relationships. It's a call to action for society to continue fighting for those who are too afraid to fight for themselves, ensuring that no one else has to face the same tragic fate on what should be the happiest day of their lives.